Okay, we're starting, so give us a second.
Did you guys send the questions ahead of time?
Donna said she kind of wanted to roll with it and not have them.
Okay, cool, because I just added some questions that I had written at the end that I was going to go with, if that was okay. But it sounds like there wasn't any sort of thing like that might get in the way.
No, okay. I like to get the questions on because then I have a real answer as opposed to something I've contrived.
That's
right.
Great.
That makes sense.
We're live right now to the whole school, so I just want to let you know.
Hello.
Like I said, it's the way they make the Wizard of Oz. Like, you only see the finished story, you never see how the drafts are made. So good morning, Shortridge High School. Welcome to World Changing 101 with Donna Washington, and I will turn it over to Miss Coriel for a brief overview, and then we'll get started.
Hey everybody, we just have a couple of things here at the beginning of World Changing 101 today. Here are some world changing opportunities from your service learning coordinator, Ms. Tukolsky. These are good for any student who wants to get some service, some engagement, some more depth with their practice with connecting with the community. So take a look. If you see something you like, awesome. You've got the information for how to reach out and contact someone for more help with taking charge of your community service. Also, we have Mrs. Shale Weidenbach with us today. She is, I believe, going to talk about some opportunities with the Indianapolis Public Library system. Hope I got that right. And there she is, and she'll tell you what she has to say.
Hello, everybody. So I am a Shortridge parent, and I also work at the Indianapolis Public Library. And I just wanted to let you know that there's a lot of stuff going on for teens at the library. Coming up this weekend and on Monday, there are poetry workshops. The first one is our Center for Black Literature and Culture. We have a poet laureate. Her name is January York, and she's going to be leading a poetry workshop virtually. These are totally free. The other one is Man on Voice, and she's doing a poetry workshop on mindfulness and poetry. So these are both free opportunities that you can find and register for through our website. Coming up, we also have a book talk with a local author named Tamara Winfrey Harris, and she wrote the book Dear Black Girl. So that's another free opportunity. We have a Dungeons and Dragons club that meets regularly for teens, a virtual anime club, and then of course we have the summer reading program that is kicking off on June 7th. That you can participate, win prizes. And last of all, if you check on our website, you may find that there are job opportunities. So the library is a super fun place to work, and we hire pages. And if you go to our website, you can take a look, speaking to you, Nova, and see that there are some openings for pages. So I hope to see you guys at the library soon. And thank you so much for having Donna here with us today. Storytelling is a magical thing. So I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Thanks, Mrs. Weidenbach. We have Nova and James here. They're going to kick off the main part of our session today. So everybody welcome Nova Esters and James Szalkie. Nova,
Hello.
you're muted. There you are.
Oh,
yeah.
There you go. Hi, my name is Nova Esters. I am a senior, and I'm involved with, I am the president of the GSA, one of the co-presidents, and I'm also a part of the National Chinese Honor Society.
Hi, my name is James Szalkie. I'm a senior at Shortridge. Many of you may know me through things from soccer, theater. I also have been involved with Butler Writers in the past, and of course I am a performer at the drag show. Those you may recall.
Most important part. Most important part.
That's the most important part. So our guest today is Ms. Donna Washington. She's an internationally renowned storyteller, spoken word recounting artist, and author. For the last 30 years, she's brought folklore, literary tales, and personal narratives to life through the art of engaging storytelling. We'd like to thank the Indianapolis Public Library for their collaboration in bringing this esteemed guest to our school. Ms. Washington, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Should we start off with some questions, or is there anything you'd like to lead with, or?
No, I'm anxious to find out what you thought about the piece, and if I have anything to say, it'll be around the questions you ask.
Fantastic. So, I mean, I myself am a storyteller, and one of the very often things I find myself grappling with is how can stories on paper and through voice have influence on the real world?
You will never change a person emotionally through facts. I mean, facts are good. I'm someone who is swayed by facts, but I do understand that most people are not. Stories help people find their way into another person's skin. And the way that they change the world is they change the way we look at the world. One of my absolute favorite descriptions of this is a storyteller named Heather Forrest out of New England. And she was asked to come and talk to all the churches for whatever reason. They get together and they do this big event once a year. And they were talking about sustainable food. And she said, I know how you could make more sustainable food in our communities. Every church should dig up their lawns and plant gardens there for food. And that would help bees. Plus, they would just give the food to homeless in the community and people who were having trouble finding food. And the organizer says, you'll never convince churches to dig up their lawns and plant gardens. That's never going to happen. So she told the story about where lawns come from and the fact that lords of the manors used to clear cut their trees and clear cut everything and plant these lawns so they could see people coming to attack them. And that used to be that all of this land was either for food or forests. So basically, lords used their privilege to just clear cut their land so that nobody could eat off of it. And then they could take the food from the people who worked really hard. She said to the churches, you're talking about being parts of communities, and you're talking about sustainable. How many of you need lawns to make sure no one's coming to attack you? And within a year, all of the churches in her community had community gardens in front of their churches.
That's amazing.
Isn't that cool?
That's so amazing.
That's so much.
So figuring out how to tell a story can have a huge impact on how you see the world. I went to a place in Georgia at one point and told stories about how the brain, when you're really little, like 3-4 years old, how the brain processes language and what it does with stories. And that entire county changed how they ran their preschool education for children based on the stories of what stories do to the brain.
Wow.
Amazing.
So yeah, it can have a huge effect, but it helps you look at the world differently. Whereas if two people are shouting at each other from their own point of view, you can't get anywhere.
Right, you need equal representation of those different rhetorical values.
Right. And also, if you present people with facts that they don't like, you set off in their brain the same exact chemicals that cause fight or flight, which is why why you'll never convince anyone on Facebook or Twitter or anything, why they have big fights. Even if you're saying things that are perfectly true, they either want to fight you or run away from you.
Yeah, can I actually grab my mom real quick so you can tell her that?
Learning that helps you figure out how to talk to people, and stories go around that mechanism and help you hear something that you might not necessarily be able to hear.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So,
go ahead.
Oh no, please, your turn.
So you were just like, when you were telling that story, I could feel how smooth and how flowing it was going. It like, it felt you were telling such like good facts, and it was through storytelling. I don't even know if you noticed, but you were even storytelling even then. So what really inspired you to start storytelling? Who maybe started inspiring you?
Okay, so this is a weird question to answer because I grew up in a family with 7 kids.
Ooh.
And it's a military family, which means every 4 years of our lives, we moved somewhere else. And I spent most of my childhood in South Korea. So let that be the bedrock. Understand that my dad is a historian, and that from the earliest time I can remember, all of us sitting around the table, my father would tell us Arthurian legend in the first person. So he had been in King Arthur's court, and he's a sleight of hand magician. And so he would like make things disappear, and he would tell us he learned this from Merlin. He also told us that he was in ancient Greece, and he told us all of our Greek mythology in first person at the dinner table. That's what happened at our dinner table every night. And he'd just throw my mother in there to prove he was telling us the truth. And so I learned the riddle of the Sphinx when I was in first grade. Like, what animal walks on what is it? Was it like 2 legs in the morning and 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs in the afternoon, and 3 legs in the evening? And of course, it's a human, right? Because in the morning they crawl, right? And then they walk on 2 legs as a person, and then they have a cane, they walk on 3 at the end of their lives. So I learned this when I was in first grade. So, which is something unless you study the classics, you aren't going to learn until you get to high school. So my life was really bounded on all sides from stories like that. And then all of my grandparents and cousins, whenever we saw them, it was all about telling stories about the lives, because we didn't live with them. We were in the army, we moved around. So when we saw them, we just heard stories. And then when I lived in Asia, because we weren't in America, they want us to understand what it was to be American. They told us stories about America, and then they wanted us to appreciate living in South Korea. They told us stories about Korea. So by the time I was I got back to America when I was in 9th grade, I guess. That's how I interact with the world. I was forever hearing stories about things that I wasn't part of, or that people were trying to get me to be part of. And I thought I wanted to be a therapist or a lawyer. And I went to Northwestern University for pre-law. And the first day I got there, I was bored out of my gourd. And I saw the theater students walking around doing their what is it? When you're intaking people in the university, they're doing these little group things. I just joined a theater group and changed my major to theater like the next week. And I didn't tell my parents till Christmas.
Uh-oh.
They were okay with it. So 2 years in the theater department there. I'm doing theater, but when I was in the theater department, Oprah had just started her first company. She was like Oprah Winfrey, doing the Oprah Winfrey show. There just weren't people who looked like me on the television very much. And there were people who looked like me on the movies very much, unless we were playing prostitutes. I'm not light enough to be an ingenue, and I don't sing or dance. So like, what am I going to do? Like, how many revivals of Raisin in the Sun can I possibly do? So I was in school thinking about maybe leaving theater because I couldn't imagine how I was going to make a living at it, when one of my professors said to me, "Have you ever considered being a storyteller?" I was like, "I don't know what that is." And then I got cast in a piece of theater where I had to be a storyteller, learned the process, and transformed into a storyteller. And then this professor spent 2 years turning me into a storyteller. And by the time I graduated from university, it's the only thing I've ever done. So for 33 years, this has been the only job I've ever had. So I've been a professional storyteller for 33 years. So that's how I got here, which is a messy answer to a really straightforward question.
Just off the cuff question here about learning how to be a storyteller, about your process. How do you, through your voice, create like a 3-dimensional story? I mean, how is that, what are you taught versus what do you learn? And how do you create something using your voice like that, and your body even, to create a whole world?
So storytelling is really different from monologuing or being in the theater. In the theater, you're trying to be seen, and you're trying to, as yourself, take people into a space. If you're a storyteller and you do it right, you disappear. You are not there. And people see things that didn't happen. Because you're not, you are like a medium through which the story can happen. But it's not about look at me. All right. So kind of an example of what that means. I was doing I was doing some storytelling for a really stupid group of kids, kindergarten through 5th grade, a bad choice, because you would like totally never tell the same stories to a kindergartner that you would to a 5th grader. And yet every now and again, people just stick them all together and go, it's just stories. So you're trying to figure out how to tell stuff that would be the kindergartners would understand, but the 5th graders wouldn't be bored by. And so I do a lot of stories where that would be normally for the smaller kids, but you have to figure out how to tell them so the 5th graders are okay. And eventually the last story I tell in that group is I give up. I do something called the squeaky door, which is the most ridiculous story you've ever heard in your life. It's full of tons of sound effects, but the gist of it is there's a little kid who's scared of the dark. No, he's not scared of the dark. He's scared when he stays at his grandmother's house and there's a thunderstorm because the door on the room where he sleeps goes boom, and he's scared of that noise. And his grandmother doesn't figure this out. So she puts him in the bed, she kisses him on the head, she closes the door, boom, and he goes, ah! And she says, you're driving me crazy, and I'm getting mad. If I let the cat sleep with you, you won't be scared, will you? She goes, no, not me. So she puts the cat in the bed, she closes the door, the cat goes off, the boy goes off, process repeats. She puts a dog in the bed. She puts a cow in the bed. She puts a horse in the bed. And eventually she puts the goat in the bed and the bed breaks. And then she goes to the carpenter's house and the carpenter comes over and fixes the bed and oils the door and leaves. And so the very last part is she puts the boy in bed, she kisses him on the forehead, she says, night, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite. And she closes the quiet door. Shh. It's a 20-minute story, and that's all that happens. Now, when I'm done with this, and I've got like all these 5th graders, everyone's making this crazy amount of noise because we make all the animal noises. Nah, woof, woof, all right, that's what happens all the way through the story. So it's this loud, ridiculous story. So it's over, and I tell barefoot, and I stand in front of a microphone. I never move. So after it's over, all the teachers from District 65 show up for an in-service. And before I start, one of the teachers raises his hand, who just seen this thing. She raised her hand, she says, we all thought it was hysterical watching you run back and forth across the stage. I said, I didn't move. No, we saw you. I didn't move. No, you were running back and forth to the barn. Was there a barn on the stage? Well, no, there wasn't a barn on the stage. Though they realize now that they're looking at a barn, right? They go, but we know we saw you. I said, I didn't move. The microphone was on a stand. Did you see me dragging the microphone back and forth across the stage? No. Could you hear me the entire time? Yes. I didn't move. We saw. I had a conversation with grown people. 10 minutes of them desperately telling me that I had been running all over a stage where I'd been staying perfectly still. And that is where the story happens. When you are so underneath the characters that you remember stuff that never occurred. It is weird. The language that you're evoking, because storytelling is not about words, it's about images. And the clearer the images you create, the images take over your conscious brain and they make for you an entire world. So the better you are at using your language to create pictures, the better you are at creating a world where your audience will just live in it. And then when you stop, they're like kind of jerked out of it. So that is the difference between like theater and storytelling.
That's awesome. Nova, I think we have about 5 minutes left.
I was wrapped in.
I did tell you, you asked me a question, I'll talk a long time. All right, Nova, what's your question?
Nova, do you want to check the chat and see if there's any being sent in?
I would love to. Let's see. So we got a live Q&A, and I want to see if any of our people have. It looks like there are no new questions, so.
I'm seeing one here from an anonymous. So much of storytelling is tied to being able to connect personally with people and to their cultural values. How can you reach someone with a different cultural framework or worldview with storytelling?
Okay. Here's the secret about reaching people who you are different from. Everybody's a person, and everybody has some basic needs. We want to be safe. We want our family to be safe. We want to have enough to eat, and we want to not be scared of the people around us. We want to have a safe place to live. Those are some universals. I don't care what culture you came out of. I don't care about any of that. When I tell stories, I'm not trying to connect with a culture. You're trying to connect with people. And what you discover really quickly about being a storyteller is that I can go into a school where they have 30 different languages or 150 languages, and some people in hijabs and some people are wearing, yarmulkes. It doesn't matter. And within 5 minutes, we're all in the same place. The goal of storytelling is not to figure out how to go into each culture. The goal of storytelling is to take everyone out of whatever they came with and create community in the space you're sitting in right there. And from right there, everything that we talk about is applicable to everybody. When you take away all of the weird stuff that we have created around our cultures and around our thoughts about people, people are just people. So that's why storytelling works across culture and generationally, because people are just people.
That's awesome.
Very good. Okay, we have another one that says, what is your primary audience? How do schools, groups, organizations get in contact with you to speak? Are there specific topics that you enjoy doing for young adults? That's a lot of questions.
It is.
Hey, just to jump in behind the curtain, why don't we skip that question unless there's something, Donna, you want to specifically answer, and I can just share her website contact information with people and the video production.
Storytelling, the way I end up doing it, is a business. So, people find me because they want storytelling. If you actually Google, you Google my name and like 50 bajillion links come up. If you're looking for a storyteller, I'm also part of the National Storytelling Network, the National Association of Black Storytellers, the North Carolina Storytelling Guild. There's a whole lot of groups I belong to. So you could find me in so many ways. Plus, if you're just looking for a storyteller, and you type it, I'm likely to show up. So I like to say I'm a famous storyteller, which is like being a famous janitor. Only other janitors would have any idea who you are. But if you're looking for a janitor, you might find me.
Oh man, you are too much. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with us. I don't want to go too over. Mr. Pachter, where are we on time?
I'll let you each ask one more question as long as Donna's answer is less than 500 words.
I'm so sorry. This might be a hard one.
I can do it. I got it. Let's go.
Nova, would you like to go?
No, you can go. You can start.
Okay, I have one that was really hankering on me after watching the video. There's a mention of folklore. And I was wondering, how does folklore connect to the modern world with modern problems? I mean, it was such a big news day yesterday, like between the trial, new riot bills occurring, typical drama in Washington, and in a modern world with modern problems. How do these stories from centuries ago connect to today?
The reason why folklore still survives and works is because it's always about people. And people don't do different stuff. They've been doing the same things for 1,000 years. There are a ton of folk tales that would have applied yesterday. They're about speaking truth to power and standing up for what's right. There you go. There's your 500 words. Okay. Nova, you're next.
All right. My question, and to follow up that question maybe, when you're talking about having current events, new things that are happening to you as a person, maybe as a storyteller, as whomever you are, how do we have those uncomfortable conversations and still make them something that we can engage with and send ourselves to an imaginary world where we can solve those problems using morals that maybe we learned as kids? Like TV shows we've always had, they've always been like, you learn to share, you learn to be nice, you learn to be kind. But in an adult world, none of that really works all of the time because not everybody's always kind. So how do we have those uncomfortable conversations?
One of the ways that people are doing it now is sharing personal narratives, stories about their own struggles, their own things that they've faced. And as one of the things I do as a storyteller is I combine, like you saw with Cherries in the Trees, my own personal stories with the folklore. They're connected, again, because we're still just people and we still do the same stuff. The connotation changes, the time changes. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some folklore not appropriate any longer. Doesn't work, don't use it, stay away. But a lot of it translates beautifully all the way across time. There will always be stories that speak to us because, again, they were made up by people and they're about people. And we are not strange creatures. We all pretty much want the same stuff. 560 words that time.
Wow, we got Rain Man over here. That's fantastic.
Nice.
Alrighty, I think that concludes it. So we presented all questions from the chat, and that was a fantastic time. So thank you so much for joining us, and good luck with your storytelling.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Your stories were so engaging. I really appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
I think that's their closing messages, or is that it?